This next video is essential if you really want to have harmonious relationships, especially with people that you're closest to. This is all about how to take connected time outs. And honestly, this practice that I developed it a long time ago, has saved marriages. Go to my website, look at my testimonials. You'll see people saying, our marriage was saved because we learned how to take connected time outs. Why is that? The majority of really unpleasant fights and arguments are all about escalation. There's an initial difference, but it escalates. And this practice is how to stop the escalation. Look, differences are inevitable. You will have differences in any significant relationship that you have after a certain amount of time. It's just inevitable. We're different. It's how we manage those differences that makes the difference between a long-term, happy, harmonious relationship and one that goes toxic. And learning how to only talk about differences when both parties are centered and genuinely capable of caring about the other is really, really important. Remember the prime directive when there's a difference? To understand each other. Sometimes we just don't want to understand the other. We're too triggered, we're too angry, we're too hurt. So we need to learn how to slow it all down. I was at a compassionate communication family camp many years ago, and I was talking to a woman who was a mom, and her son comes running up. He's about 9, maybe 10 years old. Comes running up and goes, Mommy, I need to take a time out. I'm too angry to play fair right now. Isn't that cool? That made such a big impression on me. And big enough impression, I'm telling you the story this many years later. And what I love about that story is that it gives a different twist on what a timeout is. Because especially for many parents, a timeout is a punishment. Johnny's been bad. Sit in the corner. Look in the corner. You need a timeout. You've been bad. Well, I want to blow that idea up, and no offense meant to any parents watching who views timeouts as a punishment. But let's reframe it. A timeout is what a mature person, and that little boy was mature enough to understand he needed to slow down and calm his nervous system. He was too angry to play fair. And that's what happens, is when we get hurt, when we get angry, we don't play fair. We go into attack and defend. We go into right, wrong. We go into saying things that we regret, and we can destroy relationships because we're too angry to play fair or to talk to that person the way we want to talk to them and the way we want to be spoken to. So a timeout is all about slowing down, self-reflecting, calming our nervous system. And we all need to do that. How many relationships would be saved if we all practiced how to take a connected timeout? See, that's a key part of this description. It's about staying in connection to ourself and to the other. What happens is when we escalate and the reptile brain completely takes over and we're abducted and we become this like Tyrannosaurus Rex, we're no longer connected to who we truly are. We're certainly not connected in a healthy way to the other person. We lose connection and horrible things happen. So what we want to learn how to do is to take connected timeouts, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. And this is a pretty precise formula. It's taken a while for me to cultivate it, evolve it. So I encourage you to really try it. Now, first off, share this formula, share this practice when you're centered with the people that you want to practice it with. Certainly, I will not work with a couple. When a couple comes to me for coaching, they have to fill out a client intake form. I've got to see that they're really both willing to learn and to grow and not just point fingers. And I establish you must use connected timeouts if you want to work with me. Because if they're not willing to stop the escalation, then they're not looking for a coach. They're looking for a judge. They're looking for someone to prove that one person is right and the other one's wrong. And I'm not going to play that game. Other people can do that. So that's how strong I am about using this. Okay, here's how it works. Establish the agreements when you're centered. And it doesn't have to be between husband and wife or lovers. It can be with people you live with, even people you work with. But talk it over. Be clear. We're going to use connected timeouts. Okay. And you get that established when you're in a centered place. Now, when you're in the middle of a difference or a fight. Now, something comes up and a difference arises. The very first moment you notice agitation, irritation, make wrong, anything that feels uncomfortable, I mean the slightest, you call yellow light. Yellow light means, ooh, we're entering a danger zone. We're entering an area where we want to slow down and get centered. I've given this to hundreds of people, and I really want to emphasize, most people wait too long. They wait until they're really in the red zone before they call yellow light. And it takes courage to call yellow light. The other person's talking, you don't want to interrupt them, you want to be kind, you don't want to acknowledge that you're feeling uncomfortable. Maybe you haven't learned how to feel uncomfortable until you're really, really uncomfortable. There's a lot of reasons that people don't call yellow light right away. Practice it. First irritation, first agitation, first any sense that make wrong, right, wrong, good, bad, attack, defend. The moment anything smells or feels like any of those dynamics, yellow light. Yellow light doesn't mean shut up. It doesn't mean I don't want to hear you. Yellow light, and here's the next two words, let's connect. Yellow light, let's connect. My mentor, Marshall Rosenberg, had so much genius. And one of probably like the whole gist, the foundation of his teaching was, until we're connected, we're not going to get through to each other. We always want to make for him, the prime directive is, let's connect. And what happens is the moment we begin to go into attack and defend or right, wrong or power struggle, we lose connection. So that irritation that you're feeling, that agitation that you're feeling, that wince, that part of you that's beginning to defend yourself, those are all symptoms that you're losing connection with the other person. Yellow light. Let's slow down. Let's connect. I want to hear what you have to say, but I want to make sure we're feeling connected so that I don't react against it, or so that we're really, really in that place with each other. A wonderful analogy is if you're dancing with someone, especially if you're doing, really close dancing. Well, you want to be connected. If you're not connected, but you're dancing too closely, you step on each other's shoes, or you step on each other, you kick each other, it's uncomfortable. But if you're really, really connected, you can do amazing dance moves because you're connected, and the man can hold the woman, or the person who's holding can really hold, and you know what your balance is at, and you can go into deeper and deeper moves because you're really connected, right? So we want to stay connected. So yellow light, let's connect. Tremendous kudos to the first person who calls yellow light. It takes courage to do it. Equal appreciation to the other person, because often when we hear yellow light, we might get defensive. What do you mean yellow light? I'm telling you what's wrong with you right now. This is very important, right? It's kind of like that. How dare you interrupt me? I'm on a roll. But if we can understand that's why it's yellow light, let's connect. Yellow light, I'm not shutting you up. I want to invite connection. Do you please take that in? It's so important. So For the person who hears yellow light, and by the way, I practice this in my close relationships. I teach it. And honestly, when my girlfriend says yellow light, I initially have a defensive reaction. And I've been teaching it for many, 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 many years. So it's really human that when you hear that, it's kind of like, what do you mean yellow light? Right? So, okay, the other person wants to connect. There's something going on here that maybe I'm not conscious of that I need to be aware of. Maybe it might be as simple as my tone of voice. It might be that the other person's not quite ready for where I'm going. It may be any number of things. Yellow light, let's connect. Let's bring consciousness to both of us. Let's slow down so we can become conscious. Now, when we are calling yellow light and practicing yellow light, we're slowing down. The most important thing in taking connected timeouts is slowing down, creating connection with ourself as well as with the other. If you take a look at a video of any unpleasant argument or fight you've ever been in, I promise you, you'll see that one or both people sped up. The faster that we begin to move, the more the reptile brain takes over and says, okay, I'll take over from here, right? And then once the reptile brain takes over, we're lost. It's going to be fight, flight, or freeze. And so what happens is the moment we begin to get triggered, we begin to speed up and we begin to talk faster and we go back into attack and defend and it's all yucky. But if we slow down, we have a better chance of staying conscious. And we've talked about how important it is to be in the frontal lobe. We access the frontal lobe, the observer part of the brain, the empathy center of the brain by slowing down and connecting. We lose connection to that part of us when the reptile brain takes over and we speed everything up. Another example is just notice how my voice sounds right now. I'm not going to change my volume. I'm not going to use any derogatory words, but notice if I start talking faster and faster, it becomes pretty unpleasant to listen to me, and you really don't want to listen to me right now because I'm talking really fast. But if I go back to slowing down, my voice becomes more resonant. I haven't changed any of the words I'm using. I haven't changed the volume. But just by talking more slowly, isn't it more enjoyable to listen to what I have to say? Slowing down creates safety. Slowing down creates consciousness. Now, when we hear yellow light, one of two things basically happens. We both agree, yellow light, let's connect, or we don't. Let's talk about what happens when we agree. Oh yeah, okay, I got a little triggered, but yeah, I want to slow down. I want to connect with you. Usually there's a few things you can do. One option, if you're in the same room with each other, can you just take hands, look into each other's eyes, and breathe? Especially if it's a more intimate relationship where you're comfortable doing that. If we just take hands, look into each other's eyes, and breathe, especially if it's your lover or a very close friend, oh yeah, we remember the love. That's a really nice way to do it, but it's more intimate than might be appropriate, certainly than, say, in a work situation or with certain friends or certain family members. Another option is, yeah, you know what, let me just go inside for a moment. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to get centered. Okay? That's another thing. We both just close what's going on. And then we ask ourselves, what am I feeling? What am I needing? Remember how we've talked about that. Feelings and needs. And ideally, if you've begun to really go off the rails a little bit and you've lost connection to the other one, what might the other be feeling and needing? Now here's where we get into the interesting biology of it. You can only imagine what another person is feeling and needing if you're moving toward or in the frontal lobe. You can't do it if you're in reptile brain. In reptile brain, I don't care what they're feeling and needing, I just got to defend myself, right? Frontal lobe. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. I think he really wants to be heard, understood. Maybe he's feeling anxious. I can see where maybe he's even feeling a little scared, maybe needing some safety. See, as I imagine what's going on with the other person, I kind of drop more into my heart. I'm in my frontal lobe. So that's a beautiful way to use a yellow light, especially if we've begun to speed up and we've begun to really lose connection, to really drop back in. What's going on with me? What's going on with the other? So those are some ways to work with yellow light. You can also just kind of slow down and just come back into feelings and needs. Leave the mental chatter, the projections, the judgments. Notice if there's judgments and let them go. Come into feelings and needs slowly. That's how we stay connected. And then we share, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm longing for. I'd love to hear what you're feeling and needing, or would you like me to guess what you might be feeling or needing? That's a nice thing, just to ask. Some people really like to express themselves. Other people like it if you guess or imagine what they might be feeling and needing. So now we're connecting again. It's a connected time out. We slow down, we create a connection. Now, what happens if you don't agree to yellow light? One person calls yellow light, and the other one's like, no yellow light, you need to know what you did wrong. Okay? Well, what happened in this situation, and I've been in that situation, and I've been on both sides of it, where I've called yellow light and the other person's beyond yellow light. And I gotta own that I've had my partner call yellow light on me, and I was already kind of past the point of no return and didn't want to hear it or go into yellow light. And I teach this stuff, so how perfectly human. That happened because we waited too long. One of us was already in the red zone. And so when we're at that place where there's not agreement to yellow light, it's got to be red light. And red light means physical space. Taking physical space until both parties are centered enough to genuinely care equally about each other. I'm going to say that again. If you're somebody taking notes, by the way, I really love those of you that take notes. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to say it again. Red light, physical separation until both parties are centered enough to equally care about each other. That takes a while. Sometimes it might take 10 minutes. Sometimes it might take overnight. Sometimes it might take a few years. It depends on the level of the exchange and the hurt and the hostility. But call red light and take physical space. Now, often the person who calls red light, and it takes a lot of courage to do that, offer reassurance. Red light, let's take space until we're both centered and we can come back again. Really, really important. Usually, the person who didn't call red light will interpret it as, you're blowing me off. You don't want to hear what I have to say. You're afraid of what I have to say. You aren't going to deal with, they're kind of triggered usually, and they're afraid that whatever the conversation's about is going to get blown off, or what I have to say is going to get disregarded. It's a very perfectly human reaction once we're in the red zone with each other. So remember, when we're setting a boundary with compassion, lead with authentic reassurance that we care. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm too triggered right now. I'm not feeling comfortable. Let's just take some space, but I do want to hear what you have to say. But let's take space until we're both centered. What I usually suggest is take physical space as quickly as you possibly can, and then send a text message. I really do want us to continue this conversation when we're both centered, or something like that. And really, text. Don't get into an argument about the topic, but you can text to just stay in touch with how each person's feeling and what each person thinks they're going to need time-wise to come back to center. Don't go into the argument, don't go into processing over text, whatever the debate or the difference is, but stay in text touch about timing to come back together. And really, everybody's different. Sometimes we call red light. I actually call red light fairly frequently because I happen to be someone that if I get really agitated, it takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to calm down. Once I'm in the red zone, forget yellow light. But I can actually soothe, no matter how angry I get, I can usually calm down within 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't take me long. Now, some people, it might take overnight. They may need to process. They may need to vent. Don't vent to each other. Vent to somebody else, and vent to somebody who's responsible. Responsible meaning they're not going to collude with making the other person wrong, but they're going to listen and ideally translate into feelings and needs. In fact, Scott's minute or two about venting, because this is important. Venting is like passing gas. It's stinky, and we all do it. But like passing gas, let's be responsible about when and where we do it. Ideally, we don't pass gas in a crowded elevator or when we're in a small space with another person. We go outside, we go into the bathroom. It's the same thing with venting, actually. Look, we all need to vent sometimes, but you don't want to vent to the person you're venting about unless you have a very sophisticated relationship and they're very good at handling it and you've asked permission and set boundaries. So that's complex. That's for advanced, compassionate communicators. For most of us human beings, what we want to do is find someone to vent to who's not going to make who we're venting about wrong. So what's that look like? I'm going to vent in one voice and then I'll play the person listening in another voice. Sam drives me crazy. He's such a jerk. He just goes on and on and on and he talks forever and he just doesn't listen to me. And I listen to him and I try and he doesn't care. He doesn't care about what I have to say. He's such a jerk. Okay, there's the person venting. Scott, who's a wonderful compassionate communication love coach, listening. And he says, wow, I'm really imagining it's frustrating because you listen to Sam and you really want to have dialogue and it's not meeting your value for mutuality, for him showing as much care to listen to you as you're showing to listen to him. Is that what's going on? Notice that what I did was I didn't call Sam a jerk and I go, oh yeah, you're right, he's such a jerk, I have the same problem. It's like, oh no, I'm translating into feelings and needs. Feeling frustrated, not meeting your need for mutuality or fair exchange. So that's how we want to listen to somebody when they're venting. So go to people who listen that way, not people who think they're being a good friend by colluding with you on what a enemy image the other person might be. That's Scott's Wisdom Minute on venting. Okay. So coming back and kind of completing this, on red lights, really be real. How much time do you honestly need to come back and be centered? Honestly, whatever you first imagine, I need a half hour, double it. Give yourself an hour. Always double whatever you think you need, because if one person's really eager to get back to the conversation and you're the one calling red light, I need space, I need to calm down. If you say 10 minutes, well, that person's looking at the clock, waiting for 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes goes by, you don't come back, you're not ready, you have kind of broken your agreement. And so red light's going to be really hard to do in the future. So really give yourself enough time to come back and really eat that sandwich, go to the bathroom, answer the phone, do the things you need to do. Just kind of calm your nervous system, to maybe distract yourself, to kind of get a little bit away from that thing. When you're taking space, take space. Don't keep processing what he or she said, the other person said, that bothered you, because that just keeps you in the red zone. Really take some space. Go for a walk, play with the dog, do something that's pleasurable, that takes your mind off it. But if you just keep regurgitating inside your brain what that person said or did that was really funky, you're not really taking space for the purpose of calming down your nervous system. You're re-engaging your reptile brain, right? So we want to calm our nervous system down. You're not going to do that by regurgitating the painful things. Now, if you're calming down and you're able to look at what they're feeling and needing, going beyond what they said, going beyond your reaction to it, but dropping into imagining what they're feeling and needing, awesome. That's a great way to use your time and spaciousness. The very last piece I'll say is, when you are in red light and it's really tough, get out the challenging situation worksheet. Before you go back into conversation, pull out the challenging situation worksheet. Yep, there it is up on the screen. What's the incident that happened? What are you telling yourself? What are the judgments and projections you have? Then underneath that, what are you feeling? What are your emotions? Those single words: angry, sad, frustrated, confused. And then underneath that, what are you really needing? What are your values that are being challenged right now, or that are alive for you? Safety, connection, respect. Those are common ones. And then the most important part of all, what's the other person possibly feeling and needing? Don't get lost in what they might be judging or projecting. Just drop into, what are they feeling? What are they needing? And if you fill out that challenging situation worksheet before you come back into the conversation, now you're prepared. You're much more clear on what's really going on the deeper level. And you're more prepared to have quality connection. Thank you very much for watching, and please utilize these tools. They truly will change your life and change your relationships. See you in the next video.